Hello and welcome to BYJU'S Exam Prep IAS. Welcome to another session of Indian Economy Essentials. And in today's session, let's try and understand what are the important points regarding the recent announcement or the approval of Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs regarding the natural gas pricing or the recommendations of Kirit Parikh Committee. Now, let's start with the basics here. First point, all of you should understand the fact that we consume lot of gas. We consume lot of gas, natural gas products. For example, you must have heard of piped natural gas, PNG. You must have heard of CNG, etc. Now, many of you will be confused. You'll ask me, sir, where is this gas actually used? For example, piped natural gas is used in the domestic households. Rather than using LPG cylinders, we'll get the connection directly and we'll be using this gas for cooking purposes. What about CNG? CNG is used in vehicles. In order to reduce pollution, we are promoting the consumption of CNG now. And even the gas is also used in the fertilizer sector because the gas is one of the very important inputs to manufacture various fertilizers. The basic premise is very simple here. Gas is used to manufacture or produce ammonia, and ammonia is used as one of the very important inputs in various fertilizers which are produced in the domestic market. So the fact is very simple. We require a lot of gas. Point number two. When there is a huge demand for the gas in the domestic market, do we have sufficient production to meet the demand? And here comes the answer, no. The demand is very high, but the production in the domestic market is comparatively lower. And as a result of this, what should be your conclusion? Your conclusion should be there will be a lot of imports that are going to happen in the domestic market. For example, this is the consumption of the gas in the last 1 decade. Should you remember, should you by heart the numbers? Please do not waste your time. But please observe the trend that has taken place. Is it continuously increasing, constantly decreasing, etc.? That is where UPSC can ask you a trend-based question. And the fact I told you, the demand is there, but the supply, that is through the domestic sources, is comparatively lower. And as a result of this, what will happen? Obviously, there will be a lot of imports that are going to take place in the domestic market. Now, for example, for financial year 2022, you will see that there is a large chunk of the demand which is met by imports. And if you convert this into percentages, this will come out around 47%. Around 47%, which means around 47% of the total consumption of gas in the domestic market was met through imports. Sir, is it always 47%? Has it gone beyond 50%, etc.? If you look at the numbers in the previous years, you will realize it. For example, if you see the previous financial year, you will automatically realize that the imports are higher than whatever is produced in the domestic market, which means more than 53%. Right? Just calculate it, you will realize it. More than 53% of the total consumption in the domestic market was satisfied through the import. Now the question arises, when we import and sell this particular gas in the market, the import dependence will be very high. And please understand this, compared to any other, let's say, components that is there in the energy mix, gas is always preferred. The gas as a consumption, as a source of energy is always preferred. In the domestic market, if you look at the energy mix, gas accounts for somewhere just over 6% of the total energy mix. Somewhere around 6%. Some years it will be 6.2. In some years it will be 6.3, etc. But the global average in the total energy mix, in the global market, the global average is more than 24%. More than 24%. So now what we want to do? We want to protect the environment. We want to ensure households will be getting access to the gas at, let's say, cheaper cost. We also want to increase the amount of a gas, or let's say within the total energy mix, how much is the contribution of the gas from 6% to, let's say, 15% by 2030. But rather than being dependent on the imports, the objective of the government now seems to be focus more and more on the domestic production, promote more and more investments as well as the consumption in the domestic or through the supply from the domestic market. Now, in this particular context, there is importance of Kirit Parikh Committee. Government of India set up this committee and the recommendations were submitted to the government last year, somewhere in the month of November. All the recommendations of this committee have not been accepted by the government, but some of the recommendations very recently, the Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs has accepted and has implemented these recommendations. And precisely this is the reason why many of the gas suppliers in the domestic market already have reduced the prices, which is providing benefit to the consumers such as you and me in the domestic market. Now, what is the importance of this committee and what is the situation? It's a very complicated concept. Let's try to simplify this. Whenever you talk about gas production and supply in the domestic market, please make a note of this. Generally, the evolution has taken place like this. Before 1990s, the gas mining policy, or basically anything to do with relation to the investment and production of the gas, was very tightly controlled by the government. And that is the time period when you will see that very few of the private sector companies were allowed to participate, and most of the production was done through the concept of nomination fields, which were allocated to ONGC as well as Oil India Limited, OIL. Even today, please understand this, even today, around 65% to 70% of the total gas that is produced in India, I repeat, around 65% to 70% of the domestic gas production comes from the ONGC as well as OIL itself. And the practice that we had earlier was basically that we will allocate these particular gas fields to ONGC and OIL. They will produce it and it will be marketed by one more authority in the market, specifically GAL or GAIL, and the prices would be administered, decided by the government. That is basically we followed a concept of administered pricing mechanism. Now, what is this idea for administered pricing mechanism? Government would decide what is the price of the gas that would be sold in the market, and these companies would get this particular price based on a particular formula. And this administered price mechanism was decided by the government based on what was the price of the gas at four very important places. I repeat, the APM that was decided by the government was based on what is the price of the gas at four very important places, or four important gas stations. One at Henry Hub, that is there in the USA. Second one is Alberta Gas, that is in Canada. Third one, National Balancing Point, that is in UK. And the fourth one, Russia, because of Soviet Union, former Soviet Union influence. So these were the four very important reference points based on which government would decide what would be the administered price, and this would be decided once every 6 months. And then would be implemented with the lag of a quarter. That is, decide and implement after a lag of a quarter. Now, don't you think when you take four reference points which are, right, let's say outside India, and the same price that you will keep for 6 months, and because you are deciding it biannually and you are implementing this with a lag of a quarter, whatever could be the volatility that would not be reflected in the prices. You might have decided the pricing when the prices of the commodities are very high, but after 6 months again you are going to review it. By the time the prices could have fallen, again would have risen, which means all of this simply means we were deciding these prices based on a reference point. That is basically let's say the prices at four different places. We were deciding the prices in India based on those prices. But this could not account for the real-time changes in the market situation. And that is the precise reason why Government of India decided to change the market pricing of the natural gas. Now, what has happened? I'll come to that, don't worry. Apart from this, we also introduced the concept of New Exploration Licensing Policy, NELP. The announcement was done back in 1997, and with the introduction of NELP, we started allowing private sector companies, even foreign direct investments, to flow, and they would compete at par with the government-owned entities. And before that, before the NELP was introduced, along with the nomination blocks, or let's say legacy the blocks as such, there was also concept of a pre-NELP blocks, wherein private sector, so to a certain extent, around 28 blocks of gas were allocated to the private sector companies. So this is how the evolution of gas allocation has taken place. Even today, these are present. But please understand the next point here. Government of India back in 2016 has replaced the concept of NELP with HELP, Hydrocarbon Exploration Licensing Policy. The NELP concept of allocation, let's say based on competitive bidding, has been replaced with HELP, Hydrocarbon Exploration Licensing Policy. So these are certain important points. Now, what are the changes that have been announced? Let's go one by one. Government of India now says that the prices for the natural gas in the domestic market, the prices will be determined based on what is the price of the crude oil that is imported into India. That is, whatever is the price of the average crude that is imported, the price of the gas in the domestic market will be fixed at 10% of this basket of crude oil. I hope you understand this, which means if the crude oil basket of India increases, 10% of that will automatically increase, hence the price of the gas will start increasing. If crude oil basket starts, the price of that average price will fall down, 10% of that will automatically come down, hence the gas prices in the domestic market will also come down. Point number 2, as already mentioned, 65 to 70% of the domestic gas production comes from nomination fields of ONGC as well as OIL. And herein government uses the concept of administered pricing mechanism. And in the context of this, government says, although it will be connected to the average crude oil price basket now, there will be a floor price and there will be a ceiling price. I repeat, there will be a floor price, there will be a ceiling price. What do you mean by this? The floor price has been decided at $4 and ceiling price has been decided at $6.5, which means the price that will be earned by ONGC as well as OIL by selling the gas shall not be falling lower than $4, shall not be going beyond $6.5. So floor and ceiling has been decided in order to ensure that the prices of the gas which is supplied in the domestic market, majority of it, even if the crude oil prices will shoot through the roof, it will not go beyond this. And these floor and ceiling has been decided for 2 years now, and after 2 years it will be revised. In fact, the Kirit Parikh Committee, right, I'll start using the short form now, KP, right, the KP committee recommended that the floor and ceiling should be there, but we should keep on revising these floor and ceiling. We should keep on revising. The Government of India Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs has said no right now. For 2 years, this floor and ceiling will be used, and after 2 years, we will revise it. Next, very important recommendation. How often the revision will take place? Because, for example, many of you will know that crude oil prices will keep on changing from day to day basis. So, how often the prices of natural gas will keep on changing? As per the Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs, these will be revised now every month. For every month, there will be a revision that is done by the government, which is much more representative of the real-time situation compared to earlier situation, where once every 6 months, the revision was done by the government. Third very important announcement, gas that is produced from the new wells or well interventions in the nominated fields of ONGC and OIL would be allowed a premium of 20% over APM price. What is the meaning of it? The government says, I want to promote more and more investment, especially in the new wells. How can we do that? Here is ONGC. It already has certain number of wells. If they promote more investment, produce more gas now, this new investment which has led to production of the gas, the price of this gas will be 20% at a premium compared to administered pricing mechanism as per the new formula. If I want to put it in terms of, let's say, calculation, imagine right now the administered pricing mechanism based on the crude oil prices is let's say $5. It is $5. Now, if ONGC will invest in a particular field, produce more gas now, this gas can be sold at a 20% price higher compared to $5. That is, it can be sold at $6. And what is the objective of this? With this, we expect more and more investments to take place. More and more investments to take place in the gas sector. So these are certain very important recommendations, as well as, let's say, some of the recommendations which have been accepted and implemented by Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs. Now, what is the impact of this? This is very important. What is the impact of this? One, more and more investment in the domestic market, production of gas in the domestic market will increase, import dependence over a period of time might come down. Second very important point, with fixing of the formula now, with introduction of the new formula and revising the formula every month, that is revising the prices every month, don't you think the customers or the consumers will be getting the benefit now? In fact, the recent data shows that if we had followed the earlier mechanism, then the prices would have been very, very high. Prices would have been increased by the government. Right? Have a look at this. The prices would have been increased by the government. Right? Sir, what do you mean by earlier formula? The 4 hubs, where we used to decide the prices of natural gas based on the 4 hubs. So if we had continued with the same formula, then the prices in the domestic market could have gone up. But because of the introduction of the new formula, the prices has actually come down, which has provided benefit to consumers. That is, let's say the consumers who will consume CNG or piped natural gas, etc. That is the second very important advantage or the benefit of this decision of the government. And the third one, the third objective of this is, earlier the prices, or let's say advantages of this is, earlier the prices were revised once every 6 months. Now it will be revised on month-to-month basis, on monthly basis, which is the right approach to decide the pricing, rather than deciding the prices after 6 months and implementing that too with a lag of a quarter. So these are some of the very important advantages associated with the recent decision of the Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs to accept some of the recommendations of Kirit Parikh Committee regarding natural gas pricing in the domestic market. Now, based on this, I've given an MCQ. Consider the following statements. FDI in the gas sector was allowed for the first time under HELP. Statement 1 is wrong. It was allowed under the NELP itself. Imports of LNG have consistently increased in the last 5 years. A trend-based question. Imports of LNG have consistently increased in the last 5 years? No. If you look at the graph, you will realize it. Imports of LNG have not increased consistently in the last 5 years. For a couple of years, it has increased, and for some years, it has actually declined. Right? So the statement will be wrong. Second statement will be wrong. So both the statements are wrong. Right option for the question will be neither 1 nor 2, that is option D here. So this is a discussion regarding a very important announcement, or let's say the current affairs topic of natural gas pricing policy announced by the government. If you like these initiatives, please hit the like button. Provide your valuable comments in the section below. And if you yet to subscribe to BYJU'S Exam Prep IAS, kindly do it right now. Thank you. Have a great day.